Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Lake of Tears, Ominous, out February 19th on AFM Records. This album has 9 tracks, 44 minutes in length, and this is the band's 9th full-length studio album. They're from Sweden, and they're a doom gothic, progressive, post-rock. I mean, I could go on and give you other genres to define the soundscape of this record, but I feel like it's best left alone because this is an album that you cannot define it, you cannot put it in a box, you just have to listen to it and enjoy it. And the first thing you're going to enjoy about this record is the structure that they put together. Sometimes you hear albums and you feel, man, this album really flows really well. From track to track, moves almost seamless. You can't tell where one song ends and where the next one starts. These guys took that approach, turned it all the way up to 11. That's what you're going to get from this album. They don't wait for the end of the song in order for that track to merge with the upcoming track. Sometimes they start merging the tracks 2/3 into the track. So the last third of the song that you're currently in starts to become the soundscape of what the next song is going to be like, and so forth and so forth. So the songs are not defined necessarily from where they start to where they're finished. They're defined by the overall sound presence, atmosphere, and emotions that they bring to the forefront. When you look at this record, it really feels like you're bungee jumping. But the changes from the top all the way to the bottom don't happen abruptly at the end of each track. So this allows them to create an album that's eclectic, that has different approaches, that brings different soundscapes into the mix. But it doesn't give you a sense that it's broken. It doesn't give you a sense that one song is pulling you in one direction and the next track is pulling you in a completely different direction. And that's because of the structure of the tracks themselves and how they blend in with the overall structure of the album. Once you start changing or morphing a song in the last 2/3 of that track to start to become what the soundtrack of the next song is going to be, it allows the listener to ease itself from that top of that mountain all the way to the bottom of the valley, which is the song that comes right after. And then when you're in that second song, you start to climb that mountain again into that peak, so that the song that comes after becomes a much larger track, more bombastic, has a lot more power, and you don't feel like these changes are abrupt at all because they happen very seamless, but they happen in a very slow and progressive way as you work yourself through each and every single song. So because of that dynamic, because of this morphing into what the next song is going to be 2/3 into a track, you really can't define the boundaries of the tracks themselves. And that's why this is an album that you have to listen to it from the first to the last track uninterrupted, because this album is worth for its whole. This album is one song really broken into 9 different chapters, but even the way it's broken, it doesn't necessarily give you a clear-cut image of where the songs are and where you're going to be as you travel through the record. So the songs have built-in cliffhangers, if you will, that let you give you a little bit of a sense of what's coming around the corner. I love the construction of this album. I love how it feels. I love this fluidity that it has because, like I said, it allows the album to be super dynamic, very eclectic, have different looks, different structures, different styles, but you don't feel disconnected at all because there's no sense of ending. There's just sense of continuity, and that is a key factor for how this album plays out. Now, this obviously impacts the overall soundscape of the record, and the soundscape of this album is very diverse as well, but there are some elements that stay consistent from the beginning all the way to the end within that soundscape itself. One of them is the atmosphere that it creates. This is a record that has a very dark embrace, has a very dark approach. So it doesn't matter if the song is peaking or if the song is at the bottom of the valley, they always feel very similar in how the emotion of the tracks come across to the listener. There's a sense of darkness, there's a sense of despair, a little bit of pain and suffering built into how you perceive the songs, and it doesn't really matter how the soundscape is bringing them to the forefront. It doesn't matter if the song is a little bit more bombastic, if it has a little bit more power, if it's a little bit more electronic, or if the song has a little bit more of an acoustic sound, a little bit more of a depressing note. All of that is almost irrelevant. You feel like they're coming at you from a different angle, from a different perspective, but the emotion that they carry is exactly the same across every single song. So that allows the album to have these peaks and valleys as well, but stay very consistent in the output that brings forward to the listener. Then obviously you have the changes. Like I said, the songs that are starting to peak, you have more of an electronic vibe. You feel like they're a little bit more stronger in sound, sometimes even feeling psychedelic. There's a lot of David Bowie elements into those tracks that really elevate the presence of the record. And then the songs that bring you down to the valley, they're a little bit more acoustic driven. The guitars are not necessarily as heavy. They're not necessarily the driving force behind that song. You have some cellos into the mix. The bass lines become a lot more predominant in the overall sound that they have to offer. But once again, the overall atmosphere that you get stays very consistent across these two different styles, these two different approaches as you navigate through the record. The vocals are also another consistent element that this record has to offer, at least as far as the quality is concerned. You're going to get this darker, this deep driven vocal approach that feels like it's coming from a very dark place. They're not hidden in the mix, they're not hidden behind everything else that it's happening, but they have a very dark tone and a very dark delivery. So very consistent from a quality perspective and very consistent from perhaps an approach perspective, but I felt that they change ever so slightly as far as the atmosphere is concerned. Depending on what the mood of the song was, depending if you were at a peak or if you were at a valley, the mood that was transmitted from that delivery changed ever so slightly. It's a nice balance because I felt that overall not much was changing as far as the vocal approach was concerned, but I could feel the emotion that was coming out of it was slightly different depending on how the track was constructed and what kind of mood was existing within the song itself. Overall, this is a magnificent record. I was blown away by the quality of this album, by how can you create an album that's so eclectic, that has these incredible peaks and these incredible valleys, and you don't feel a break between them at all because you're transitioning from one into the other through the songs themselves. Absolutely incredible soundscape, incredible atmosphere, incredible record, an album that grows. The more you listen to it, the more you discover from it, the more you find hidden gems within the album. You find a groovy bass line that you didn't perhaps pay attention to it the first time around. This is an album that just keeps on giving, that just keeps on growing. And once again, it's a record that really is one song divided into 9 different chapters. Now, as far as songs are concerned, this is nearly impossible to pick 3 or any kind of number of songs out of this record, because I keep saying this because I feel like it's really important. This album is worth for its whole, so I hate breaking any songs out of it and really highlighting them, because it really does a disservice for the overall quality that this record has to offer. But if I have to pick 3, I want to start off with In Wait and In Worries. This song has a long intro into it. It really builds the expectation of what the track is going to deliver. It leads you then into a guitar and vocal bass line that really creates the substance of what the song is going to be and how it's going to feel. Very dark, has this beautiful dark embrace that comes from both guitars and vocals together. It really take over the overall emotion, the overall atmosphere of the song. The guitars sound very empty. They sound drained of thought, drained of feelings at times, but they're still very rich. They find this perfect balance between emptiness and richness of sound, and you're really going to get that across this track. The vocals bring in a little bit more warmth. They make the song feel a little bit more cozy. They give you a little bit of a more of a warm embrace, if you will, as the song progresses. Still very dark. I felt this track had a little bit of a Johnny Cash vibe. The more I got into it, the more I listened to it, the more I felt that there was a little bit of a Johnny Cash aroma spread across the song, not just from a musical perspective, but also from a vocal approach. Next, One Without Dreams. I love this song, one of my favorite songs on the album. The guitars offer a little bit more of a bite. This song becomes a little bit more edgy, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more raw. The bass is absolutely phenomenal. It really comes across in the song, creates a very epic bass line that becomes almost the foundation of everything that you're going to get out of this track. It really brings this song together. It gives this track overall, when you think of how the guitars sound and when you think about the bass coming together, it really gives this track more of a rock vibe. Perhaps one of the most rock driven songs that this album has to offer. I love how dark it is. I love how moody it is. It moves up and down depending if you're in the verses or you're in the chorus. The transition is smooth. It's not really abrupt, but you definitely feel the changes going from the verses into the chorus. The vocals are a little bit more controlled in the verses. They're more intense in the chorus, and that is one of the key elements that really lets you know where you are within this track. A song that feels like was built in a loop because it keeps repeating itself, but at the same time is not boring and repetitive. That just goes to show you the quality of songs on this record. Last but not least, In Gloom. This is the closing bonus track on the album, and what a closing track it is. This is without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite song on an album that's worth for its whole. If I had to pick, if I had a gun to my head and I had to pick one song, this would be it. I love this song. It feels like you're drowning in sorrow. That's the best way to describe how this track comes across. The cellos are absolutely beautiful. They complement the acoustic guitar sound that the track has. It becomes almost a song that has a modern Western vibe to it, and that is a really interesting approach. It's a really interesting sound, and it becomes richer and richer as the track progresses. The vocals are very cavernous. They have a very dark, somber, very paused approach. They add atmosphere to the track. They really make you feel the darkness coming to life with every single word that it's said. The lyrics match perfectly with the delivery, and then those two together create this incredible atmosphere that is put on the platter with how the song sounds, with how the cellos are coming forward, with how the acoustic guitar comes across throughout. Beautiful, but at the same time filled with pain, filled with sorrow all the way through. This is it. Lake of Tears, Ominous, out February 19th on AFM Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.